Welcome, everybody, to the Fandom Podcast Network special presentation of Time Warp Live, Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series retrospective. And on this special Time Warp, especially right around Halloween, we love to look back at a show or a movie that definitely has a lot of Halloween themes. And one of those wonderful shows, of course, is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. As of this recording, came out about 26 years ago, and we wanted to showcase. We've talked about Buffy before on the network, but we wanted to showcase it during our video renaissance here on YouTube, the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, I have to have my own Scooby gang for that. I also have my Dingo Ate My Baby t-shirt, which my lovely wife got me. And you know what? Speaking of my lovely wife, let's go ahead and get her in here. Erin, how are you? Welcome to Buffy.
Yay, best show ever.
You are the resident Buffy expert. I am married to you, and I appreciate that very much. Also, thank you very much for the t-shirt you got me.
No, that's okay. I loved how you went, do I have a t-shirt? I'm like, yes. Do I have a Buffy t-shirt? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, we have more to bring into our Scooby gang. And of course, the queen of movie foo herself just did an enormous rewatch of the entire series, which makes her an expert now. Welcome, Lacee. What's up?
Hooray!
I'm excited to get your input on this, Lacee, because I'm actually in the middle of my rewatch. I'm not done with it. I just transitioned from season 2 to season 3.
Right
You,
on.
however, have just gotten through all of it, which I didn't know you were doing.
Yeah, I did a full Buffy Angel combination. So I did full all 12 seasons and I staggered them appropriately.
Nice.
Like
Well
within
done.
the seasons, not even like within the episodes. So I would do
Wow.
I got all the
That's dedication.
So was that season 4? Oh, I have to keep changing everything.
Yeah. 4, 5, and 6 were rough.
Well, we have one more person to add to our Scooby gang here for Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series here. And of course, that is my brother from another mother and fellow founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's up, buddy?
Yay.
I put off a date at the Bronze with Cordelia for this, so this better be worthwhile.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get right in. Of course, this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We are celebrating the entire series here. We got a lot of topics here. Jedi Jones gets in here. Each generational stream, a Slayer will talk, but not alone. Oh, not alone. Welcome, David. Good to see you. As I mentioned, this is the Fandom Podcast Network. If you're watching this, please give us a like and a subscribe, share it out. We'd appreciate that. If you're listening to this podcast, please check out the video version and give us some love there, because we're going to have a lot of fun, slides to go along with the topics. And of course, this is the Fandom Podcast Network Time Warp show, which Lacee and Kyle, we are also doing Time Warp 1983 this year, and coming soon, we're going to have part 5. We're going to be talking about October and November, so make sure you check that out as well. And so we thought that we would combine our favorite time machine travel devices here, a DeLorean with a hot tub in it. So we're going to go back into time, back into 1987 when this little show came out. Let's go check out Buffy the Vampire.
87?
97.
What did I say? 87?
Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh.
97. I'm stuck in the 80s, guys. I'm stuck in the 80s. But let's go check out 19...
Quickly before we do, can I
yeah.
just say that to Kyle and Lacee and you, Kevin, thank you for helping us drive through the top half of the UK, because we use Time Warp, all of 82, 81, everything to listen to while we were driving right through all of the UK. Literally,
Nice.
that's what we listened to. It was great.
Yeah,
It was great.
I was the DJ on my phone, and we played almost every Time Warp that we could of recent memory. So it was great.
We had hours to do it, but it was good. So thank you, guys. Going forward, to fans out there, do revisit those Time Warps of those 80 and 81s and 83s and 86s. I don't know, we did them all, really. Enjoy.
All right, let's go back in time to 1997. All right, guys, this is Time Warp Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series retrospective. And what I thought that we would do first is kind of let's talk to you guys first. When and where did you first watch it? Did you get into it a little bit late? Did you watch it when it came out on some type of physical media, DVDs, VHS, what have you? Did you get in it right from the beginning? Let's start with you, Erin. Where did you start with Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Where were you?
So I was living in the UK, and I just started at Forbidden Planet London, in New Oxford Street, in the old store. And it was sort of, nothing had really come out about it. I think it hadn't even come over TV there. I think it was still playing in America. But, of course, you had Starburst and, certain sort of fan magazines, sci-fi magazines were bringing out covers, Femme Fatale, all that sort of stuff. But what happened to me is that for some reason, the company Fox decided to bring out like Hellmouth and Hellmouth 1, the Buffy Surprise and Innocence, and Becoming 1 and 2 out on video at like Blockbuster. So you couldn't get the whole series, but you could get those episodes. So when I started getting into it, because a woman I worked with was American, and her mum was sending like recordings of it to her in England, I decided I'd rent Hellmouth 1. And I went, yeah, that's cool. Oh, this is really good. And I got into it, fun. And then I went, oh, well, I'll watch like Surprise and Innocence, not knowing there was like a whole season and a half in the middle. So when I started watching it, I'm like, wow, Buffy's cut her hair and she's wearing really dark eyeliner. And, oh, I think I'm a little bit out of whack here. So it's this weird double thing. So I didn't jump into Becoming. I had to wait and go through them all. So that's how I got it. I was a little bit spoiler to where, from the beginning of Buffy to when Buffy technically changed and became an adult show, literally in those episodes. So that's how I found it.
Very cool. Lacee, what about you? How and when did you first get into Buffy?
Well, okay, so I worked at Blockbuster when the original movie came out, and I was a huge fan of the original movie. So when I heard that they were getting ready to reboot and do a TV show, I was like vehemently opposed. I was ticked off. I was like, you guys are crazy. Why would you even do this? This is perfection. Why would you? And then somewhere in season 2, there's an episode where I guess I think it's Surprise, where they're getting ready for the party. And I was like channel surfing, and I saw the interaction between Giles and Xander, where they're getting together in the morning, and Giles says, is everything ready? And he's like, yeah, you ready to get down, you funky party weasel? And that line made me go, oh, okay, I have to see this show. This is hilarious and amazing. And the whole, there's a little bit more to the conversation, but I immediately was like, okay, how do I find the first season? Because this isn't, back in the day, this isn't where you can just find them. So I had to wait until I, during reruns over the summer, kind of collect them, piecemeal for the first 12 episodes and the first, I think, 6 episodes of season 2 or 7 episodes for season 2. So when they started coming out on VHS and later on DVD, I finally got to see like the 1 or 2 that I still hadn't seen. But yeah, so I was a big fan. And the thing is, the 3-pack of videos that Erin's talking about, that was actually in the US, it was packaged as a 6-pack best of. And so it was six episodes, 2 episodes per VHS cassette. And it was a box set.
Gotcha.
That I had proudly displayed on my little shelf, because I was everyone who was like, you said you would hate it, you never watched it, I was like, yeah, you gotta watch this. And I became like the ultimate like fan. Yeah.
Gotcha. Kyle, what about you? When and where did you first get into Buffy?
For me, Buffy was probably around halfway through season 2. It was one of those things to where I was kind of aware of it because I was working in a comic shop at the time, and I'm like, it's Buffy, come on. Unlike Lacee, I wasn't a huge fan of the original film. But a friend of mine recommended it to me. I found it. I checked it out. I was like, okay, this is infinitely better than what I thought it would be. Luckily, he also happened to record all the first season because the first season was so hard to find. It was aired at a weird time in weird things because first season of Buffy was syndication. It wasn't on a network per se. And that was one of the Buffy has such a weird history within its own networks that, and I know we'll get into that a little bit later, but I truly do believe that most of the Buffy fans out there were late getting into the Buffy game, whether it was season 2, season 3, because I just really don't. I think a lot of people jumped on it right out of the gate, and luckily it was word of mouth for those few diehards that jumped on it right out of the gate that really helped spread it. It's one of those shows that I really think, considering it was before the internet, to grow as it did before by just word of mouth is absolutely astounding.
Well said, Kyle. You know, what's funny is I was one of those people that got into Buffy a little bit late. I was into some other TV shows and hobbies, specifically in the late 90s, and of course, big into Star Wars and Star Trek at the time. But I moved to Virginia to work for a game company in the beginning of 99. And of course, a couple of the fellow geeks that I work with were huge fans of Buffy. And we kind of got into this rhythm of going over to someone's house and watching like the new episode of 24. That was a big thing for us. And Buffy became one of those shows. And at that time, I think it was going into season 4, maybe. And there's a little bit of season 3 left, if I remember correctly. And so I was, I liked the watching together of all these things, and I was curious about Buffy. I just never got into it right away. And so I know that they started coming out on video in 2000. And in combination with that, as you mentioned, Kyle, my friend that I was working with had also been recording them on VHS. And what I loved about this guy was that he was my kind of VHS recorder. Was he would record the shows when they came on and without like commercials. It was great. And so he gave me those, and then I got caught up, I think, on some VHS or DVD that came out, and they let me borrow them. I hadn't bought my own yet. And so going out of season 3 into season 4 with the whole Initiative and Riley, that's when I started watching live. And then, of course, I jumped in on Angel like pretty much from the beginning because they were watching Angel as well. And I watched Angel all the way through. I watched Buffy all the way through. And then I kind of left it alone for a little while. And I did some other fandoms. But something kind of always kept me kind of attached to it or coming back to it or discussion around it. And then I went and married a woman who's crazy about it. So, you know, I can't ever get rid of it. So, all right,
I even
guys.
have a pillow that I hold when I watch TV that has Buffy on it.
Yeah, I have that over here in the den. Got one of those too. So yeah. All right, guys, let's head into the next topic here. All right. Let's talk about how Buffy the Vampire Slayer has influenced pop culture big time. I found a great article by Mike Delaney, and this came out in 2017, which I believe was the 20th anniversary of Buffy. And it was on www.fandom.com, and it was how Buffy the Vampire Slayer has influenced pop culture. In the past 20 years, Buffy Slayer has appeared in our screens. Many of the concepts it introduced to television are now taken for granted. Created by Joss Whedon, Buffy's grew beyond its original concept to become a groundbreaking series that still feels relevant today. The influence of Buffy the Vampire Slayer on television cannot be overstated. It was a breath of fresh air that took the world by storm. And we take a look at the many ways that Buffy the Vampire Slayer has influenced pop culture. Leading women. Buffy did not start the trend, of course, but it had a huge cast and guest stars of strong female lead characters. And that was by design by Josh. Also, too, Buffy speak. One of the most memorable things about Buffy the Vampire Slayer is the dialogue employed by much of the young cast, dubbed Buffy speak. It serves to underline the youth of characters like Buffy, Willow, Xander by giving them a unique way of speaking compared to the more formal and proper Giles. Buffy speak has since slipped into the common usage throughout television. Perhaps one of the most memorable uses in recent times have been the Doctor Who shows. Russell T Davies admits he was influenced by Buffy as well. Also, season arcs. Love them or hate them, Buffy popularized the use of season-long arcs on the television. Each season had a particular big bad who Buffy had to defeat. Also, we had the social commentary. And amongst all of the demon and vampire slaying, Buffy the Vampire Slayer also dealt with more normal issues. The main characters were all in high school, so along with worrying about the end of the world, they were also worrying about studying and exams, which nearly everyone can relate to. Other issues dealt with over the course of the series, including bullying, relationship anxiety, losing one's virginity, discovering one's sexuality, and even dealing with the loss of a parent or loved one. And also, Buffy was great for this normalization of the geek culture. When Buffy the Vampire first aired, it quickly became one of the shows that was acceptable to talk about in front of your non-geek friends. Buffy crossed boundary lines due to its likable characters, fun but serious plots, and accessibility. No longer did geeks have to hide the shows they watch because everyone was watching Buffy as well. Erin, I want to start with you on this. I know we've touched on this before, you and I. And we know that Buffy over the years has had a huge impact on pop culture. For you personally, what have you seen in pop culture shows nowadays or what have you that Buffy has influenced?
Oh God. I don't know. I mean, I suppose, well, they started bringing out Charmed and the sort of the Pretty Little Lies. So you had a lot more of the, women taking over. It wasn't just sort of, they were in the background, really, where they were in Star Trek and stuff like that. So you were sort of at the forefront. They could carry a show. Again, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I don't get that deep into it. I'm more of enjoyment. I'm not, I've enjoyed people sort of pulling it all apart, but looking into other shows, I always think Buffy is just unique, and that's why I love it. It did go into other stuff, but then I also think no one's ever going to be able to repeat it, ever. Don't care if, we'll talk about that later, but to me, it's just unique in everything because going forward, as much as you had other shows that came out, Buffy will always live longer than that.
Interesting. I like that. Good take. Lacey, what about you? What have you seen when it comes to the influence that Buffy and the show style that it presented influenced pop culture?
I think that just as far as television in general, between Buffy and then a couple of years later, The West Wing, and then the year after that, Gilmore Girls, the concept of not spoon feeding your audience was completely obliterated. It was completely over. With Buffy and Angel and some of the shows I also mentioned, you would start in the middle of a conversation, you'd show up and you just had to catch up. They didn't spoon feed the audience anymore, and it was just a matter of speaking at a more a quicker pace, and people would talk over each other, and I think that was definitely part of a change in television to now, where you see shows where you've got any number of shows where nobody spoon feeds anybody anything. They started having, in procedural shows, they started having lawyers consult for law shows and doctors consult for like Grey's Anatomy and St. Elsewhere and all these other whatever. And I think that's because they realized that the viewer was not as dumb as you thought they were. And I think that that's a big reason that television is the way it is today. And I think Buffy's part of that. Me personally, I picked up a bunch of the things that, like, Cordelia is my inner demon. Like, I love her quips and whatever. So on numerous occasions, I've asked someone if they, don't they have an elsewhere to be? I've asked people, like, many Cordelia quips have accidentally made their way into my conversation.
That's great. Kyle, what have you observed about the impact that Buffy's had on pop culture?
It's had a huge impact in pop culture and how we absorb our pop culture too. For me, one of the biggest things with Buffy is Buffy changed dialogue in shows. The way Joss Whedon wrote and how the dialogue was executed in these shows changed the game. It was quick, it was fast, it was quirky, and you see so many shows that have come after Buffy using those same things within their dialogue. I mean, obviously, Whedon was for a long time credited with creating that Whedonverse feel and the way the dialogue rolls, but Buffy was big on that. I think Buffy also became a show, you brought it up earlier, with the overarching story arcs. But the thing with Buffy is it still found a good balance of having the overarching story arc, but having bottle episodes as well. And I think that's one of the things that has been kind of lost since Buffy's come out, is people are so more focused on the overall story arc. I also think there's an aspect of this show, especially in the 90s, was having characters, the viewers who were watching it of the same age or within that age range, we could relate to them. And I think what Buffy did, being, because originally, like I said, season 1 was syndication, then it went to the WB network, and then this is kind of its own history itself. Buffy is one of the few shows that's bounced around different networks and survived. It was syndication, WB, then UPN, and so to survive 3 different network changes, we never saw show changing a network was rare, if ever. So that was a big deal. But I think the other thing is just the television that becomes relatable. And I think for all the craziness of the science fiction side of Buffy, there was so much in Buffy that was relatable, especially to people in that time period. And it was written so well and written in a way that wasn't dumbed down and dealt with the intelligence of its viewers instead of trying to keep it simple, stupid television.
That's a good point, Kyle. It's interesting. The thing that stands out for me that you guys have touched on is definitely the quick banter, the Buffy speak, as we call it. And I think that, maybe it didn't start but it definitely popularized it. And we saw a lot more of that going forward. The story arc was something that did happen, of course, in other shows, but I think Buffy really kind of perfected in the style that it was. As of now, we have shorter seasons in television, and so we have these season arcs. We rarely have episodic television anymore. And so it's interesting how now that is the normal, is having a season arc, having a big bad that will last through most of a season and then finally being defeated later on. But one of the things, too, that I just want to mention, too, was really focusing in on the character development and the camaraderie, the friendship, the love affairs, the coupling up of certain characters and guest stars too, I think was something that Buffy also excelled at. And as I mentioned too, I'm doing a rewatch right now, and I'm just kind of going in from season 2 to season 3, and it feels like that's where it really kind of starts to ramp up and let you know how dangerous a world this is, where they live, and the risks. They're not afraid to kill people, and they let you know that. And so I think that that's a few things that Buffy has definitely excelled on and had an impact on pop culture as well. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead and head into the next topic, and this one will be interesting. All right, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the seasons real quick. I'm going to give a quick little synopsis of it so we can let the viewers and listeners know what was happening and who became the major guests, the major stars as opposed to the guest stars. And of course, we have season 1. Oh my God, guys, look how young they look. It's so funny. Look at the little Buffy skirt there. All right, guys. So the first season of Buffy originally aired on the WB television network from March 10th through June 2nd, 1997. It only contained 12 episodes instead of the common 22 that others had. And then next we had season 2. Here we go. And by the way, in season 1, though, it was Sarah, Nicholas, Allison, Charisma, and Anthony as the main guest stars. And of course, we had Angel and many others as well. But season 2, after her death at the hands of the Master and a summer vacation spent with her father, Buffy returns to Sunnydale and is strangely withdrawn in a snappy mood. She also determined to break off a relationship with Angel and seems little too eager to renew her Slayer training. But getting Angel out of her blood proves to be harder than thought. As the two drive in closer, their passion erupts into danger neither of them could have foreseen, affecting not only Vampire and Slayer, but all of Buffy's friends and family and even her Watcher. And this is where David joins the cast as a full member. And we had reoccurring cast members, Juliet Landau as Drusilla, of course, James Marsters as Spike. We had, of course, Christine playing Joyce, the mom. We had Robaya Lamort as Jenny. Seth Green comes into it as well as a guest star, is Oz. And, of course, Armin Shimmerman as Snyder, and many, many others. All right. Next, we have season 3. The third season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer originally aired on the WB television network from September 29th, 1988 to September 21st, 1999. It was the last season before the spinoff of Angel. And Buffy returns from the big city to find her friends have been battling the forces of evil without her. As she struggles to regain her mother's and friends' trust, a new Slayer named Faith arrives in town, quickly winning all of Buffy's friends. But Faith's arrival is just the beginning of new forces Buffy must face. For a few nights after she encounters Angel, who is now somehow returned, feral and violent from the hellish demon dimension where Buffy had sent him, but the real demon Buffy must ultimately face is already on the side of the portal, preparing for a special graduation day surprise for Sunnydale. And of course, this is where we have Seth Green joining the main cast as well. And of course, Eliza Dushku as Faith. And Harry Groner as Wilkins, Alexis Denisoff as Wesley, and a few other notable. Emma Caulfield comes in as well as Anya. So there we go. All right. Next, we have season 4. Here we go. Did I get that right? Here we go. All right. 4th season, October 5th on the W Network from October 5th, 1999 to May 23rd, 2000. Going concurrently with the first season of the Angel series. Buffy begins a college feeling completely overwhelmed, but once the monsters show up, it's just like old times. But she starts dating Riley, a handsome commando battling the same monsters. He's part of a secret organization called Initiative, and Buffy is all too happy to join the team. But she soon suspects the Initiative may be more dangerous than the monsters they are supposed to be battling. And of course, we have James Marsters as Spike joining as full cast member as well, and Mark Blucas as Riley, with Lindsay Krause as Maggie Walsh, who runs the Initiative as well. All right. So next we have season 5. This is where things get interesting here. All right. Sorry, my notes are getting a little weird here. Let's do this here. All right, season 5, the 5th season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, originally aired from September 26, 2000 to May 22nd, 2001, concurrently with the 2nd season of Angel. It was the final season of the show to be broadcast on the WB network. All right. Get this here. Sorry, guys. My computer's a little free here. Synopsis. After an unsettling encounter with the Dracula, Buffy asks Giles to once be her watcher. Luckily, he agrees, for Buffy is about to face mortal problems, far more threatening than the undead. The sudden appearance of a sister named Dawn, her mother's mysterious illness, and Spike's undying devotion. Then an undefeatable demon appears, forcing Buffy to turn into an ancient spirit guide who tells her that love is her greatest gift and power. Of course, we get Amber Benson as Tara, and we get Michelle Trachtenberg as Dawn joining the cast as well. We still have Mark Blucas as Riley Finn. All right. Next, we have season 6. There we go. Look at these cast pictures. It's interesting to see them getting older and older.
And their
right.
clothes are getting more and more covering.
Yes, definitely. So the 6th season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer originally aired on the UPN network from October 2nd, 2001 to May 21st, 2002, concurrently with the 3rd season of the Angel series. Elated with having Buffy back from the dead, her friends never wonder if she may have been in a better place. Only Spike knows the truth, and as Buffy struggles to readjust to life and begins a relationship with Spike that torments her as much as it brings her fleeting comfort. Yet even as Buffy fears the magic that brought her back has somehow changed her, Willow's growing reliance on magic is an addiction she can barely control, and one that threatens everyone. All right. And then next we have the final season, season 7. There we go. All right. The 7th season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer originally aired on the UPN from September 24, 2002 to May 20th, 2003, premiering earlier but ending later than the 4th season of Angel. It was the last Buffy season before the series continuation in comic form. As Buffy accompanies Dawn on her first day at the new Sunnydale High, Giles continues Willow's magic education in England. But while Buffy is surprised to be offered a guidance counselor job, Willow is shocked to experience a horrific vision of the Hellmouth, future vision. Willow returns to Sunnydale, and Giles soon follows with the word that the Watchers Council has been destroyed. Determined to make one last stand, Buffy and her allies gather up for an upcoming battle, yet nothing can prepare them for the First and his robed bringers, who are killing all of the potential slayers and anyone who gets in their way. Of course, the main cast at this time is Emma Caulfield as Anya, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, James Marsters as Spike, and Michelle Trachtenberg as Dawn, and of course, Sarah as Buffy. And we have D.B. Woodside, and Felicia Day makes an appearance as well, Elisha Dushku as Faith, Nathan Fillion as Caleb. We get a lot of people back in this, including David Boreanaz and many, many others. All right. There was a season 8 in the comic book. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But Erin, I want to go to you next. I want to get your thoughts on your favorite seasons. And you recently did a rewatch, and you changed your mind on a couple of them. I was wondering if you could touch on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I've watched seasons over the years. I usually skip season 1 because I always thought it was too kiddie. It's quite a kiddie version. So I used to always go to season 2. And then I always finished at season 5 because that's originally how Josh wanted to do it, was 1 to 5. And it feels it. Then we had a pandemic, and then Victoria got locked down for like 400 years. So we ended up rewatching it. It was on Foxtel, and so it was like, yay. So we spent the whole time rewatching it. And I did it from 1 till 7. And I never liked 7. I think I watched it once. I have the DVDs. I've got the English book versions, but I never watched it again. And I think it coming off 6, and 6 is, to me, coming now the worst season and could actually all be burnt. There's about 1 episode or 2 episodes, and the rest of it could all just go away. I actually enjoyed season 7. I enjoyed having everyone come back. I liked it that it was the first. It would change. You could get them, the master came back, and the mayor came back. So they all came back. Everyone got to do something. I love Nathan Fillion. I thought he was great as Caleb. They killed him too early. Sorry for spoilers. But they did. So I appreciate 7, and I put way more of the hate in 6 than I do. I actually will not watch that.
So what are your favorite seasons?
So it technically goes 4. I know that's going to be everyone's like, what? I love 4. I find 4 very funny. 4 is the funniest. Spike coming into the Scooby Gang. There's when we're talking about favorite episodes, there are episodes where his lines are just hysterical. It's just the brilliance of him coming in. I wasn't a massive fan of him becoming Buffy's partner, but I liked it when Spike was sort of evil, but not really, but sort of. I love 2 and I love 3, so it sort of goes probably 4, 2, 3, 1, 7, the end.
Gotcha.
6 can just die an evil death because it's just depressing and boring. Hate it.
Lacee, what about you? What are your favorite seasons?
I kind of break the seasons down into who the big bad was, right? Like I loved the Master, right? Now I'm blanking on his name because my brain stopped working a minute ago, like seconds ago. But the guy who plays the Master has been in a million things, and just his portrayal was so different than anything he's ever done, and it was just fantastic. Then you've got Spike and Drew and Angelus. Then you've got the Mayor. Then you've got the Initiative. Then you've got Dawn and Glory. Then you come to season 6, where there's no bad guy. It's just life, and life sucks, and everything's bad. So the bad guy was just life. I mean, I know there was like...
Oh, it was the 3. There was the 3 boys.
Right,
The bad.
But they were like, I mean, come on.
No,
They
yeah, okay.
weren't terribly. I mean, they
Well,
did
technically, it's Willow, isn't it? Really, in the end, it's
Yeah.
Willow.
right, and then it's Willow is bad for like 2 episodes, and then the final season would be the first. So for me, it's the more physical villains are the fun ones. Like when she's actually doing the fighting, it's hard to fight the whole concept. Like the conceptual villains don't really get me as much, right? Like Glory, where she's there and she's not, and she's there and she's not. So for me, it's the first 3 seasons are my favorites. Probably 3, 2, 1.
I have to say, I totally forgot about 5. I like 5, so I'm going to take that back. I'm like, totally missed 5. So I'm going to quickly go back on that. 4, 2, 3, 5, 1, and then 7, and then we get rid of 6. But no, I did enjoy 5. 5 was the saddest. 5 was a very sad. It was Riley leaving, Mother dying, Buffy dying, and I love it. And I thought Glory and Ben and Glory was hysterical. I loved her, but it was a heartbreaking. I did more tissues in 5 than ever, and I still do.
Yeah.
Weren't they planning on possibly stopping the show after 5? Is that why?
Yeah,
It was meant to. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it changed, and you can feel it.
Kyle, what about you? What are your favorite seasons of Buffy?
My overall favorite season is the 3rd season. I think the 3rd season is the apex of Buffy. The mayor is a phenomenal villain. You bring in Faith. I really felt by the 3rd season is where you could see where the main cast has really gotten into the skin of their characters and really understood them, and the chemistry was just off the charts in season 3. You bring in Elijah Dushku as Faith to mix it up, and I think she mixes it up just well enough. And obviously, the end of season 3 also spins off into Angel, which was phenomenal. I think it's the most fun. I think it's the most, it's the best of the bads. So I think across the board, 3 is the apex of Buffy. I would say 2 after that. I think 2. You talk about. I think 2 is maybe the most emotional season of Buffy because of what Buffy goes through with Angel, and nobody saw that coming. So it was so just what's going on here. You also have the episode where Angel kills Jenny Calendar and the emotional reaction Giles has to that, which we don't see from Giles normally. So that's good. I would say 1 would be next, and I would probably go 5, then 4, then 7, then 6. I think.
Gotcha.
I think it's weird because I always antiquate this to 90210 for some reason. The show changes so drastically when they go to college, and it has a different feel to it, but it's still kind of there. 5 kind of starts putting me off a little bit because that's when they bring in the Cousin Ollie factor, because now you have Michelle Trachtenberg in the cast. 6 was just emotionally draining. It was that to watch that season just drains you of all emotion. It's just so there. 7 is kind of like, okay, we're back together for our last hurrah, so you're riding the nostalgia trip. 5, the other thing about 5 is I like Glory as a villain. I think she brought a lot of fun energy and was actually a great playoff of Buffy during that season. 4 is the Spike season to me. 4 is when they really decided Spike is just as much of a main character in this show as Buffy is, and James Marsters is wonderful in that season, and he's what makes that season so much fun.
Gotcha. Well done, Kyle.
Yeah, I think Buffy worked best in high school. I think when you boil it all down and rewatch it, the most comfortable part of Buffy, because they're contained. They've got the library, and then I think Buffy it just changes a bit, but you start having to pull back because people spread out, and that's how life is. But I think if you put it as a whole show, I think Buffy, and I think Norm said that once, your old co-star, that Buffy works best in the high school.
Well, it also changes the stakes, because once you're in the real world, you have and you're over 18, you've got the law to deal with, you have other things. So once you're, when you're still in high school, she's hiding this from her mother. She, there's this whole conversation she has with Joyce in, I think, season 3, where she's like, didn't you wonder about all the blood stains?
No, it's end of season 2.
The end of season 2. Yeah. Like just when she finally, and there's so many allegories in the show to begin with. About, like just navigating high school and all the different things. But I think it really, the change between high school and college is just the whole set of scare tactics kind of changes, because you're I don't know. I think
it's interesting. I see everyone's point about high school, and I get that, but I think that I like it when you see, like, I liked it when 90210 went to college, because then you start having to deal with a whole set of other problems. And I like it, even though it felt like maybe they spent like 7 years in high school. I like it when they do move. And yes, I was a fan when Saved by the Bell went to college. But anyway, I think it was inevitable that we had to go to college. And also it introduced the initiative. And by the way, I want to give a shout out here to David Jedi Jones here. A shout out to the young babyface Pedro Pascal, who made an appearance in Buffy as well. So,
yeah, first season of season 4, freshman. First episode.
So,
and it's funny, when Mando came up, when he did the Mandalorian, that's all I thought about. That's the guy from Buffy.
Yeah.
That's all I thought about. It's the guy from Buffy.
For me personally, because I got into Buffy at the end of season 3 and I watched fresh new season 4, I'm going to say, and my rewatch is going into season 3 right now. So I'm really curious to see if my opinion is going to stand after I finish my rewatch. But I'm going to go season 3, 4, 2, 5, 1, and I'm going to hold off on 6 and 7 right now, because I've only watched those once, if I remember correctly. So I need to go back and revisit those before I make my judgment on that. But guys, there was, as mentioned before, there was a season 8, but in comic form, as Kyle face palms right now. So I'm going to let him touch on this. But before he does, I'm just going to give a quick little synopsis here. So yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 8 is a comic book series from Dark Horse Comics that was published in 2007 through January 2011. It is a canonical continuation of the 7th season of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series. The premise is Buffy and Xander now lead the Slayer organization command center, which is situated at a citadel in Scotland. At their disposal are a wide array of witches and slayers, along with a vast amount of technology. There are 1,800 slayers worldwide, according to Buffy, almost 500 of whom are working with the Scoobies, separated into 10 squads. Squads are Andrews in Italy, Robbins in Cleveland, blah, 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 blah. For Buffy's protection, and because of her name is feared worldwide, 2 decoys are put in place. And in the wake of the Sunnydale's destruction, elements within the United States military view them as an army skin to terrorist cells, and characterize Buffy as a charismatic, uncompromising, and completely destructive leader. And it goes on and on with a little bit more details there. But Kyle, you gave me a face palm there. What are your quick thoughts on Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 8 comic?
So I remember when they came out, there was a ton of hype for this. Josh was writing it. The covers are absolutely beautiful art. Unfortunately, I wish I could say the same about the interiors. The art on this book, Dark Horse, was bad. It didn't feel like Buffy. It felt like, okay, they just threw some. There's an old thing in comics for a long time where when you had a TV or movie property and you would throw an artist who was in training on it, and that's what this book felt like. The other aspect of this was you got Josh Whedon where he had no restrictions on what he could do because it was a comic book, and he went wild, and it was so over the top and so just like, these characters do not feel like these characters that I watched on TV. And I think it went on he had ended up doing like through 11 seasons on the comic. And I know he also did Angel too, picking up on the cliffhanger that
sticking with the same artist.
Well, no, it cycled through a lot of artists, but unfortunately none of them were as good as the cover artist, who's the one who did this beautiful picture here of Buffy. But yeah, it just, you couldn't, when you read something off of that's based off of a property, you know how you hear the actors' voices in your head. You couldn't even do that with this comic. The art was so distracting, and it was just so busy.
Well, it was worth mentioning, I think, But let's go. By the way, Davidson agrees with you. He's not a fan of that as well. But let's go ahead and for this Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series, let's get into our favorite episodes. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to stick with Erin and Lacee here and have them talk about their favorite episodes, because I consider them the immediate experts here because they know them so well. And Lacee, you just did a full rewatch on here. But Erin, we're going to start with yours first. And you came up with some really good episodes. A couple of them you put together because they go together for one reason or another. We're going to go with, first of all, Hush, season 4. Your thoughts on this?
Oh, yeah. So I think it was the only time he got an Emmy nomination for writing. And it was funny because there was no dialogue. Like there was a little bit of dialogue at the start and a little bit of dialogue at the end. Can I just go forward with, from season 2 to season 4, the composer Christopher Beck was the music for Buffy. And if you watch season 1, I don't know who did the music for Buffy, and it's not really music, it's sort of noise. Then it is Christopher Beck, Christopher Beck comes in, and his music literally makes all those seasons because he had themes. He had Angel theme, Angel Buffy theme, Angel Riley theme.
Did his
Willow
music
themes.
have a direct impact on this episode? That's
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because you had it was the first time Buffy and Riley kissed. So that had a theme, and just the music of it. There's a funny story about at the end when Buffy and Riley get together and they find out right at the end that they're not who they are, and they're fighting in what we always called the Buffy church. It's not a church, but it was very similar to a church around I lived near in London, where a friend of mine would send a message going, "I'm at the Buffy church," and he'd only be like 5-minute walk away. But that had a little bit of sentimental thing. We've finished the bus, and it does look like that. It's not, it's a house, but it's got a big clock. But just the gentleman was so scary. So scary. And I think the lead gentleman is the guy who was in Pan's Labyrinth. You all know his name. Tall guy.
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones.
He's the main one.
Yep,
yes.
Yeah. Also.
And then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Star Trek. He's in everything. To ask what he's not in. Them floating and the grins, and then having like escaped lunatics as their sort of whatever, like their little dogs sort of things, running around. I mean, really, in the scheme of things, if you would sit there and say, what's the scariest, Buffy, it would be that one. Yeah. Also, I loved, look, I'm a big fan of Riley. He was the rebound guy. He was great after Angel. That's how he's meant to be. And I thought he was strong. He was hot. And I enjoyed Riley. And so I loved the fact that they got together in this and then they found out who they were. And just, finding out Giles literally could have a sex life, which you would never know. But, and he had the girlfriend who turned up. And it was just the way they had to talk without speaking. I mean, so many layers and so many amazing things that are in this episode that has no dialogue. And Josh is known for snappy, witty dialogue. And he got the same reaction through just mime, writing down, and Buffy doing a strange thing with a steak. Same reaction.
All right, so the next one you have is Amends, a.k.a. the Christmas episode, season 3.
So they never did. So America does, and England does it too. They do Christmas, and America does a lot of Halloween episodes, and they only did 2 with Buffy. But Amends is technically the Christmas episode. And it's you meet the first. So Jenny Calendar comes back, and apparently, and I could be is it one thing I made up? But the actress who played her, what's her name?
Olivia Moore.
Yeah, which is funny because her last name is Death. She had a car accident not long after doing this, and then I think found God and actually rejected Buffy for a while. said it was evil and that what she was doing was evil and stuff like that. And I think now she's come back into it again. But she played the first, and she's sort of, the first is like this ancient evil, and it gets into Angel's mind, and he's come back from hell, and he's still a little bit like, why am I here? What's my purpose? And you start seeing things he did. And I loved when they went back in the past. They do it in The Becoming. They did one with Spike, going back and doing those back in the past episodes and showing, in the costumes, I thought were loved. Yeah. Well, I love this. Again, music-wise, again, the last scene where he's going to kill himself because he's driven so mad by the first who keeps saying, kill Buffy. And Buffy goes there and they have this interaction that is so adult and so heartbreaking, and amazing line where he says, I wanted to take comfort in you. Mainly he wanted to sleep with her, and he knew he would lose his soul, and he didn't care. And I could rewatch those 7 minutes of their dialogue on repeat, and I could start crying now because it's so beautifully written and so beautifully acted by 2 actors, and the writing. It's just, as much as I love the rest of the show, that tiny bit is my favorite of probably all of Buffy that ever happens.
You had referenced, of course, you have Becoming Part 1, Season 2, and Becoming Part 2. These were the 2 final episodes of Season 2, where Angel plots to revive an ancient demon bent on sweeping everything on Earth into hell itself. Or plot Part 2, Spike strikes an unlikely alliance with Buffy to keep Angel from destroying the world. I just watched these 2, and so they're very fresh in my mind. Very powerful episodes. Why is it in your top 5?
So again, this sort of Season 2 was the time, pretty much, I think, from Surprise with Innocence, that kids were watching it, sort of tweens, I suppose, were watching it, and parents are walking past the back of the TV, doing stuff, and then suddenly maybe sit and watch an episode. And that's when parents came in. And I actually had that as a fact, that when I was working at Forbidden Planet, that's what someone told me. They said, we thought it was a kiddie show until those episodes, and then we were hooked. And from that, it snowballs to the next one that's my favorite, Passion, which the end of Passion technically should go straight into The Becoming. There's 3 sort of fluff episodes, though one of us is Lacey and mine's favorite episode, which is an off thing. But they're fluff episodes. They do nothing to this arc. It drops with the floppy disk, and it starts with the floppy disk. Not in a straight away, but it goes there. So, again, we find out how Angel turned. We find out how Angel got cursed. We find out how Angel goes to Buffy. Why he had an Irish accent and lost it, we'll never know. But just go with it. And again, Spike coming in, starting with the relationship with Joyce that goes through. And again, the friggin' music, I can't describe. The Angel and Buffy theme is heartbreaking. And the way that it builds up to this amazing fight at the end, and she has the choice of having him getting his soul back right at the end, but she has to save the world, and that's what Buffy always did. And she has to sacrifice him to save the world. And the lead up to the music, the beautiful sword fight, to her, then him landing on his knees and coming back as Angel and asking, is she hurt? And then her kissing him and telling her to close his eyes, and that friggin' music. And then she just sends him to hell.
The sword, he gets the sword in the gut. He gets the sword.
Oh my God. That sword goes into his gut, and that sword went into all of our guts. And there's not been anything on TV that has heart-wrenched me as much as a couple of those scenes, ever.
And also, too, we get Kendra throat slit by Drusilla pretty violently, actually. So yeah,
Well,
definitely.
yeah. So all that roll up, and then it all sort of everyone joining in, and you've got Oz coming in now, and it's but that again, there's certain spots that you could just have on repeat.
Okay, so next you have Pangs and Something Blue, season 4.
Okay, so they run into each other. So this is after Spike's gone away, comes back from one episode, Love and Walk in season 3, greatest episode, brilliant. And then he comes back in and he's got a chip in his head, so he can't bite anyone. There's a wonderful scene where he tries to bite Willow, and the metaphor behind it is that he's got sort of like anxiety, basically he can't perform. And that, it doesn't happen to all vampires, but it happened to him. And then this leads to that he has to basically go to the Scooby gang because he can't eat to help him out because he's got, information about where he's been and the initiative. It also Pangs brought Angel back, and it was a Thanksgiving episode. So many funny bits in that episode, so many funny lines. Spike kills it for the whole thing. Beautiful little ending about how everyone knows Angel's there but Buffy, and then that fell into Willow being depressed because Oz has left, which was another heart-wrenching episode. But this is the funny episode, and she puts a spell on that, she wishes her will. And because it doesn't really work, she says, well, Giles, you can't see. So he goes blind. And that Xander's a magnet for demons. So demons come after him. And that Buffy's not listening to me because she just, has to look after Spike. So why don't they just go get married? And then that's it. They're all over each other. And for 2 episodes that are just from heartbreaking episode from Willow and Oz to these 2 funniest episodes that I've ever seen. They're my funniest.
You've mentioned in your notes that these are the funniest episodes, and I think too this is where Spike was really kind of starting to steal the show, and he becomes part of the Scooby gang, and there's this something that's like this funny thing that's going between her and Buffy's mom too, which is kind of funny. But next, your top 5 ends out with Passion, season 2. Angel steps up to torment Buffy and her friends, and Jenny searches for a way to restore his soul. And of course, this is where Jenny Calendar is killed.
So if you were to take the bridle off the horse and let it bolt, pull the thing back and just let it go, this was the episode for Buffy. So first season, pretty sort of not kiddie, but sort of that young thing. You head into season 2. You had the changeover, which we did not see, where you made your hero into a villain. Brilliant. I mean, I can't describe. You then had a couple of little episodes, and then you had the whole thing of let's just make this a show for adults as well. And Passions is the one where it strips everything. Again, music that even what's his name? Oh God, the redheaded guy plays. Quick name, can't remember.
The redheaded guy plays what?
The guy who's the singer. His name's totally messy. He's redhead, massive,
Weird
singer.
Al.
Ed Sheeran.
No, Ed Sheeran. That's it. My God, Ed Sheeran wrote a song that has a sample from this show, from this episode. And so, because he loves it, and it's based on this episode. So this is where Angel kills Mr. Calendar, who literally is getting back with Giles after her betrayal with Buffy and Surprise and Innocence. And they're about to get together. The way Angel sets it up with the opera and the wine and the roses is heartbreaking again, with her at the top of the stairs in the bed, dead with a broken neck. Again, one of my favorite scenes at the end is when Giles goes for his revenge and Buffy has to save him, and she drags him out and he pushes her away and he says, "This is not your fight." And all she does is turn around and punch him and hits to the ground. And then she jumps on him. She says, "I can't do this alone." Where do you get this stuff? Like, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing. I was crying last night. It is so amazing.
He's become a father figure to her, and
Totally.
Yeah, and the fact that she needs him and doesn't want to see this mentor of hers die. But yeah, it's definitely gut wrenching. Well done.
Real quick, I just want to say probably Anthony Stewart Head's best performance on an episode of Buffy.
Yes.
He also says it's his favorite.
Yeah,
if you look at things, it's his favorite episode of all time. And yes, it is, because you sort of see the Ripper come out. Like, I think Kevin and I were talking about this. It was going to be a spin-off show. This, that he was this guy years ago that wasn't Giles. And they bring it up in Band Candy. It's like, well, now Giles has gone back to his past, is not going to be pulled it together Giles. But when you see him walking in to whack Angel across the face, it's just a totally different face of Giles. The Ripper has come in, and again, but just the reaction of Angel watching Buffy and Willow get the info. Now, apparently they actually had the phones set up that they got that dialogue. So Anthony Stewart Head was saying to her, he's killed Mrs. Calendar. Through them, and that's how they got that info. All
right. Good choices. Well done.
Sorry, I get a little bit involved.
No, those are great. All right, Lacey, we got your favorite 5, and you have some really cool choices here. And let's hit on your first choice here is I Only Have Eyes for You, Season 2. Sunnydale High School is haunted by the ghost of a former student and teacher who reenact their tragic romance through the bodies of the school's current inhabitants. Give us your take on this. Why is this one of your top 5?
Okay, so first of all, my top 5 is going to be mostly for humor, and because I don't do a lot of drama, I enjoy the humor in things more than anything else. And although this is a very dramatic episode, I think that this is one of my favorite episodes between Angel and Buffy because their parts are switched. And it also leads to the conversation in the next episode where he's talking to Spike and he's like, she made me feel. You can't just forgive somebody for that. I'm going to go rip her lungs out. He says, that's not very poetic. He says, well, it doesn't have to be. What rhymes with lungs? And there's just this really fun banter. But it also brings us John Hawkes in one of his very few network TV shows. He's been very vocal about the fact that he doesn't like episodic television on regular networks because he feels that commercials interrupt the flow of the show, which is why he rarely does network television gigs. You've got Meredith Salinger. You've got one of Christopher Gorham's first roles as the young boy. It had a lot of good guest stars. It had, some really poignant and heavy. And on top of it, this is one of the few episodes where you've got a student with a gun in a school, and it's not a school shooting episode.
Right.
That's not something that now granted, there was a school shooting episode a few seasons later, and then they had to pull it because of Columbine, and there was a lot of, but this is one of the few times where you can actually see this situation where it's not considered a school shooting, which is kind of a rare occurrence.
Right.
But yeah, so this is one of my favorites because of the setup and the guest stars and the overall action for it.
And I also, that's one of my favorite too, but going again, and it's not Christopher, it's Christoph Beck, just double checking just in case anyone wants to query. That music at the end when they join together and it all comes up and well, that's me. But again, that scene when they reversed it is again some of the best acting. It was brilliantly done. It's such a good episode.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic.
Next.
Even the set where they chose to do that scene was like the perfect choice. So, so
next, Lacey, you have The Prom Season 3. After Angel breaks off the relationship, Buffy single-handedly battles 3 fearsome hellhounds so that her classmates can enjoy their senior prom. By the way, I'm getting these synopsises from IMDb, so they're not great. So I just want to let you guys know. But why is this in your top 5?
Well, okay, first of all, my top 5, I listed them for you in chronological order. So these aren't necessarily like in my order of my top 5.
That's fine. That's fine.
5 episodes, no particular order. This one is my favorite because first of all, you get to see them in their fancy dresses and that's super fun and whatever. But I love the fact that this is the episode where after 3 years of hiding who she is and saving people from the shadows, Jonathan actually gives her the umbrella, which is like the class protector award. Oh, and I'm gonna cry. It's like this is so sweet where he's like, we have a new award this year. Is Buffy and he doesn't even say is Buffy here. He says, did she make it to prom? Like, did Buffy make it? Because everyone, and then of course when he does the announcement, like people in the all around are like they're like screaming like hyenas, fish people, like the mayor.
Snyder.
Yeah, Snyder, all that kind of stuff. So the number of people who kind of know but don't know, it just kind of goes to show that as an outcast in high school, you can actually make a difference and people pay attention. It was just a very poignant show. And then at the end, of course, Angel shows up in the formal wear and everything, and that's nice. So anyway, yeah.
All right. So next you have Buffy versus Dracula. If you're gonna have a show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you got to try to find a way to get Dracula in there one way or another. The one and only Dracula makes his way to Sunnydale, immediately has everyone enchanted. Even Buffy might not be able to resist his charms. This is season 5. All right. Why is this in your top 5 list?
Okay, first of all, Rudolph Martin is one of my favorite portrayals of Dracula ever. Like, I know that there's been, Frank Langella and all, Christopher, all these people. I love this portrayal because it's so, like, there's so many moments where he's like legitimately confused by her reactions to him, and that to me is fantastic. Add to it that Xander is basically the Renfield of the show. and there's several references during this show back to like when he got syphilis back in season 3, I think. And this guy, and then there's this whole run where he calls him master, and then like under his breath goes Bader, and just because he's trying not to be the Renfield around the people that he's with because he doesn't want them to know that he's the spy. And it's just some of the best comic timing on Xander's part. And then you follow it up with Giles getting trapped by the three brides, and how he's like, oh no, I should go back. I left my shoe. I should go back. They're like, no, it's just a really good classic 1 hour telling. It's like a mini Dracula and a Buffy episode, and they coincided so perfectly. And I just loved it. And there's some of the best comic lines. Along with, I mean, she's struggling with some stuff during this episode. And so there are some times where you genuinely don't know if she's going to just give in. Gotcha. And I mean, she'll have to get out.
They work together. He got the gig. One, I think he is Romanian, and that does help. But he got the gig because he was her boyfriend or something on All My Children or whatever show she worked on way before she did Buffy. They actually knew each other on a soap.
That's good. So there's
how we got the gig.
Chemistry there. Yeah.
I only knew him before I think I only knew him from, I think he was in 24, like right around the same time.
Yeah.
As one of the villains there. But yeah, so that's the Xander of it all during the Buffy, during the Dracula episode they are some of my favorite lines in the entire series.
So the next 2 episodes are from season 6 that you have listed in your top 5 here, Lacey. Mm-hmm. And of course, a fan favorite that is Once More with Feeling. In this musical extravaganza, Sunnydale residents find themselves bursting into song and flame when a demon attempts to make Dawn his bride. And also a soundtrack was released from this. And I don't know, I don't know if this set the trend for trying to do musical episodes with shows. I know recently they did it with Star Trek Strange New Worlds, but this definitely made news and is a fan favorite. Why is this in your top 5?
Well, let's face it, they have had several shows. I mean, Psych did a musical, Grey's Anatomy did a musical. Was there one on Supernatural? I can't remember, but like, so
last I checked, these are all shows after Buffy.
Right.
Before
exactly.
That,
For me, the true like mind blow here is that Whedon wrote and scored the whole. He wrote all the lyrics and everything, which is, I mean, you get a writer, you get a director, but I'm the first person. I don't know a lot about music. I know what I enjoy, but I couldn't. If you played something, I couldn't tell you who sang it. I mean, unless it was like Elvis or maybe someone with a codpiece and big hair from the 80s. That's fine. But mostly I can't remember music to save my life. I loved the comments within the dialogue of the songs, of the lyrics of the songs. I mean, even to the point where on the soundtrack, there's a bit where Marty Noxon sings about getting the mustard out of her shirt, or no, the parking ticket, and then David Fury has a 12-second bit where he sings about getting the mustard out of his shirt from the dry cleaners. And it also has some of the most fun lines where, like when Anya is like, what is it? Dawn walks in and says, you'll guess what happened to me at school today. And she's like, did every person is singing, in the song? And it's like, no, I gave birth to a pterodactyl. And Anya turns around and says, oh my God, did it sing? so perfect. Like, just the little throwaway lines are what they're so good at. Right, and not to mention just the tap dancing and everything else. And everyone was told beforehand that there was going to be a musical episode, and everyone was given the option and the opportunity to explore their range within their own comfort zone. Right. I mean, gotcha. the different pitches and different types of music. Yeah.
Kyle, you had a comment?
The one thing too about this episode that I always loved is actually one of the heaviest reveals within Buffy, within one of the lightest hearted episodes, because this is the episode we found out they pulled Buffy from heaven.
Yeah. They pulled her out of something. She was like, I was happy. I was in heaven. And the other thing is that this is the first time, Spike finds out first. So he's the one, and of course this is their first kiss. Like, the very last shot is them kissing. So this is when Spike and Buffy kind of start their little thing where he's genuinely, into her, and she's like dealing with some stuff. So she's just like, getting some physical exertions out, which, whatever. So it's an interesting kind of huge humorous, fun, like upbeat, and everyone thinks it's Dawn and all this kind of stuff, and then you find out that it had nothing to do with Dawn all along. It's just because she was wearing the necklace. So there's a lot of like misdirects and everything else. It's kind of a classic fun like misdirect.
Your last episode that you put in your top 5 is Gone, season 6. The 3 geeks mistakenly turned Buffy invisible. The Slayer takes some advantage from going unseen. Will has to do the detective without using magic, and Xander finds Spike doing some weird physical training. That was a description that I got from that. Why is this one on your list?
It's just so ridiculously funny. And normally when you get the invisibility episode of any given sci-fi show, because there have been several, but normally you get the person who's like just desperately trying to figure out, how do I get back to, how do I become visible again? But she's like, you know what? I'm out. I'm going to go do some, Spike. And then I'm going to just like relax and I'm just going to enjoy myself. She's like, nobody can see me. This is great. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do what I want to do. And the fact of the matter is that you put the trio, which it's just such a great, like they work so well off each other, and they're such idiots. They really, really are. When I think this is the episode where he gets upset, Andrew gets upset because he didn't want to stay in Mexico because he didn't speak Mexicoan. And Jonathan's like, come on, you memorized the whole Klingon language in 3 weeks. And he's like, but those have much easier transitive verbs. You're just, what? It's fantastic. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Kyle, I want to start with you next. Give us a quick shout out of some of your favorites.
Well, Hush is one of the greatest episodes of television ever made, period. And so, that in fact, I believe that is in the Library of Congress as part of that. An episode that wasn't mentioned that I think is also another very powerful episode is The Body.
Yes.
Buffy's mother. Not only the performance that Sarah Michelle gives in that episode, but the actress who played her mother in that episode. Christine. That was a very hard shoot for her just laying there that entire time, but having all this emotional around her, and just how they played that up was absolutely wonderful. The prom is
I
one of
think
my all-time.
Anya had one of the best scenes for that.
Yeah,
I
Remember
don't
where
understand. I don't understand.
she
Yeah.
couldn't get the Willow couldn't find the top, and then Anya would always say the wrong things, and then she turned and she goes, "I don't understand why she can't come back." It was her first understanding. It's so mortal. That was a beautiful scene
Yeah.
of them actually understanding that Anya isn't as unfeeling as she comes across.
yeah.
And the fact that
Okay.
because she was a demon for so long that she had like lost touch with all those human emotions, like, because I mean, she was around in some of the flashback episodes, but she's been around for so many years that she's just sort of lost that contact with humanity.
3 other episodes real quick I just want to drop, and I can never remember the name of it, but it's the episode where Buffy's in the asylum.
Oh yeah, it's on that. I wrote it down. Kevin's got it. Yes, I know what it is, but I can never remember the name.
Because I've never seen an episode really make you question quite as much as that episode did. And then two of my favorite, just for fun purposes, involve evil vampire Willow.
Normal again.
Normal again.
There you go.
When the first one, when Anya shows up for one of the first times and
The wish.
grants Cordelia's wish, and then we see what Buffy, and we have evil
Doppelganger.
vampire Willow, and then she shows up again in our universe, and Angel's like, "Oh my God, they got Willow," and then Willow comes walking in. Just two of my favorite episodes because evil vampire Willow was not only really fun, she was kind of hot too. So,
And that was also the first time where they foreshadowed where Willow was going to come out, because she said, I think Vampire Me's kind of gay. Like, I mean, all of a sudden, and then of course 2 seasons later, you're like, oh well, hey, there you go, which was kind of a fun little flashback.
For me, I'm continuing my rewatch, so I'm going to reserve to update my list at a later time. But Hush by far has always been my favorite episode. There's been some other good ones too. But what's interesting is I've been going through season 2 and 3. One of my favorites is Faith's first appearance in Faith, Hope, and Trick, which is coming up soon. So I'm almost there. It's a silly episode, but I always remember it as band candy when the adults start acting like immature teenagers because of the
Armin
cursed candy.
Sherman shines so well in that episode.
And because I'm a huge fan of John Ritter, I like season 2's Ted, where he plays the strange robot new boyfriend, and he keeps calling Buffy little lady, and I'm like, oh God, good villain. I just got to say that. I love that. So yeah,
nice.
All right, guys, as we are continuing through our Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series retrospective here in Time Warp, we got another big segment that we're going to touch on. We're going to talk about some of our favorite characters. So I found this article that talked about a list of 117 Buffyverse characters ranked from worst to best, okay? So what I decided to do was, they also include Angel in this, is I put together the list of the top 10 with some then honorable mentions after that. I did take out a couple of ones that were, Angel specific, or, that had mostly were in Angel, like Fred. So I'm keeping it to just Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series here. And number 1 is Willow. Willow is overall everyone's favorite, according to this article. And I do want to give credit to the article. It's by Adam B. Very from BuzzFeed News Reporter at BuzzFeed.com. And then we go on with Spike being at number 2, followed by Rupert, Faith, Buffy Summers, Cordelia, Mayor Richard Wilkins. Sorry about that. Anya, one of my favorites. Xander, Drusilla, Tara, Angel, of course, Oz, and then we keep going here, and we've got Jonathan Levinson gets a shout out too in the top 20.
Here's the umbrella.
Yeah, and Darla, this is getting the top 20. Jenny Calendar, and then we kind of start getting up further higher up. Amy Madison is in there, Joyce Summers, The Master, Harmony Kendall, Princess Snyder, Dawn Summers gets a mention. Kendra as well. Riley was at number 90, just so you know where he was on the scale. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on your favorite characters. Erin, you are shaking your head. Give me your top 5 characters off the top of your head.
Well, I love Buffy, and I love the fact that they didn't make Buffy the popular person. That was the whole thing about Buffy. She wasn't popular. She had been, but then when she got to that school, it was, yeah. You know who I love and is the strongest? It's Xander. Xander, and Summer. One of the favorite things about Buffy for me is when they have the fights. So it's not all I love you, I love you, I love you all the way through. Xander and Buffy have some massive fights. The fight over Jenny Calendar when he wants to get, Buffy wants to get Angel's soul back. One of the greatest episodes, again, we missed when they have the fight when they find out that Buffy's been hiding Angel and they have the intervention. Also, when Angel came naked through the roof and landed on the ground was still a good episode at the end. Again, with Xander turning around and saying when she's going to let Riley go. Like, Xander is technically the only human out of all of them. Everyone's had a little bit of this. Everyone gets this, everyone gets that. But the only one with no powers, who is the strongest and is the only person who swapped the course of history because he brought Buffy back. And that set all the split timelines because of the new Slayer is Xander. And I thought Nicholas Brandon was fantastic. So to me, I love watching Xander. I think to me he's up there. I love all of them in the sense of that group. And Oz, I thought Oz was so good. He just, some of the things he said, just little he just did these little sort of grunts that were amazing, especially when Buffy could read people's minds.
What about you, Lacee? What are your favorite characters?
For me, again, Xander. My favorite character is Xander. It's always, and there's actually a scene, I think, season 7, when he's talking to one of the girls in the hallway where she gets hit by the light that's finding the Slayers. And she thinks it's her, but it ends up not being her. And he's like, you're the one, like, he gives her this whole speech about how she's not one of the chosen ones. And that makes her stronger because we have to watch them go into battle and do all these things. And we don't have the same powers, and we have to worry, and we have to, keep the homestead fires burning or whatever, and there's just a lovely speech in where he sits there and has this talk with this 16-year-old girl who just realized that she's not the thing that she was supposed to be. And it's so good. And but then his comic timing throughout the whole series, and the song, his song with Anya in the
is the best one.
Musical is the best one. In Fear itself, when he's like, oh, who's the fear demon? Oh, who's, and Giles has to say, don't taunt the demon. Oh, can it hurt me? No, it's just tacky. Like things like that.
And the scene with him and Harmony having the fight.
Yes,
but it's a slapping fight. It's, oh my God,
fantastic. And then in the Zeppo, like, he has an entire episode where everyone else, like, you see them fighting these big things and there's tentacles and all this kind of stuff. But the episode is centered on him with the 3 guys. I think Shannon Rowe is one of the guys, the head, like, bad guy, where they're gonna bake a cake, and they're driving down in his uncle's old car, and they're gonna bake a cake, and he has to, like, really, like, come at these 3 dudes and say, like, I'm ready to do this. Are you? Like, I'm ready to die. You're not coming back this time. Like, and he really did and at the very end of the night, everyone's like, oh, what'd you do tonight? He's like, oh, nothing. Like, it's just, he knows that he makes a difference, but he doesn't have to, like, kind of sound off about it. And then Spike is the other one. Yeah.
Do you have any other character shout outs to some of your favorites?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Spike, I think over the entire season, the series, and then moving on into Angel, I think he has the most dramatic arc overall. I mean, he starts out as the bad guy. He flounders back and forth. He gets the chip, so he's a good guy. Then he gets the chip out. Then he has almost rape scene, and then he voluntarily gets his soul back. Like, that's a lot. I mean, and then, so, and then he gives his life, and then he gives, like, I think that he probably has the most dramatic arc of any of the characters over the whole 12 seasons. And then Oz and his comments about like he is so deadpan. Everything he says is just like, yeah, that's like kind of shady for a bench. Like things like that where you're like, just, yeah. Those would be my 3 favorites, I think.
Yeah. What about you,
Harmony, as far as the ladies go, Harmony has some of the weirdest, silliest, like Blondie Bear, like just calling it, and it just grates on your nerves every time you hear it because it's just going to get her in trouble calling Blondie Bear over and over again. Yeah.
Kyle, what are some of your favorites?
It's interesting because some of my favorites, I think Angel might be my favorite character because of what the acting David Boreanaz had to do in that, going from Angel to Evil Angel, and just how evil he was as Angelus. And
he was great.
And he was so amazing in that. For me too, I'm a big Cordelia fan, but the thing about it is I liked how Cordelia's character developed in Angel. I mean, I liked her, but she took that character. Charisma Carpenter took that character to another level in Angel.
She did. I would agree with you there, Kyle. Yeah.
And I love that. James Marsters as Spike is just amazing, and he steals so many scenes. I think the one thing that happened to him though, especially from probably, I'm going to say season 4 forward, is as much fun as he became. You said it yourself, Kevin. He ends up stealing the show from the rest of the cast, probably from season 4 forward. It becomes very Spike centric, and Marshall is amazing. I loved him in the final season of Angel as well. I mean, the Angel puppet Spike fight is going to go down as one of the greatest moments in Buffyverse history.
That and the argument over the astronauts and the cavemen and who would win.
Yeah. Ugh. I also think one of my favorites too is Faith. I think Faith. The thing about Faith is she always was the perpetual bad girl, but she made you want to be bad, and she made the characters want to be bad. She had that kind of influence with her personality and just her charisma with the character, and obviously amazingly performed by Elijah Dushku. And again, I think even in a better performance is Faith in Angel than what was in Buffy. But she's amazing in season 3 of Buffy. I mean,
I have to say with Faith though, I loved Faith until her interaction with Xander. But so because I love Xander so much, I was like, nope, you mess with Xander, I'm out.
The one thing about Xander, and it's kind of a flip thing. Yes, he's a strong human character, but there's a lot of times because he's the human, and even the other characters take that for granted. There's a lot of times where he's treated like the little bitch, and it's hard to watch sometimes, and it kind of makes me wonder if some of that what Nicholas Brendan went through with that, because seeing all these other people kind of really get the star out of it, I wonder if that didn't affect him a little bit in how he is today.
He's had some run-ins recently.
When I want to stay on Spike here because he's one of my top 5 favorite characters, but from a different angle and a different reason. When I started going to conventions in the mid 90s and a lot more in the late 90s, especially when I started working for the game company Decipher in Virginia, went to a lot of conventions because of that. James Marsters was heavy on the convention circuit. He was the star from the Buffy universe that you saw most. He kind of reminds me of how Robbie Amell and his brother, how they're always out there doing the things and being, in the Supernatural cast and all those people. He was at all of them. And I got a chance to meet him a couple times, and he's a great guy. He's very good to his fans. And I think that he knew and took advantage of being able to do these convention appearances and making a lot of extra money doing it too. But I feel though he did pay it backward or pay it forwards with the fans, and he was always really good with the fans and very entertaining on stage. And of course, throughout Buffy and Angel, he stole almost every scene that he was in, and so that was one of the reasons why he was my favorite.
For a character who was meant to die in literally that first episode, Andrew Stiller was meant to keep going. And then if you have heard interviews where he said Joss Whedon had him against the wall saying, "You ruined everything," because he literally, because they were all meant to be, that they were just sort of fluff around. They weren't meant to be solid characters.
Yeah.
And he made Spike. And then Lover's Walk, season 3, I'm coming in for one episode. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to say some of the best things ever. And I'm going to leave singing a version of My Way as Sid Vicious.
Yeah.
Actually, Kevin, I have a really quick James Marsters story for you. You talk about him in convention circuit. In that era. I went to a convention in Chicago, a Wizard World convention, with a buddy of mine, and his wife was in love with James Marsters. And he was telling us this, and he saw that my buddy had a cell phone on. He said, "Call your wife." He called him, went into Spike voice, and she literally fainted on the phone because Spike was called.
That's awesome.
And funny thing, I like him with the English accent more than the American one.
Mm.
It's weird hearing him talk. Same with Wesley.
Yeah,
because I'm so used to it.
And he's like that out in the wild as well. When I lived in LA, he used to play with his band at some of the smaller clubs like 14 Below and some of those little, kind of little pop-up areas and stuff. And he was always just sort of like hanging outside talking to people, and then he'd be like, "Oh, I gotta go, do a set," and then come back out and just hang out and talk. I mean, he was just very laid back, very nice, just very genuine and generous with everybody.
I also seem to remember too that I was so surprised he was from California. And he was the one actor that, like, when I really kind of started paying attention to how actors are doing good accents from other countries and styles, and then now it's like you got to question, are they Australia, New Zealand? Because there used to be a joke back in the 90s and early 2000s that Canadians made the best Americans. Now it's Australians and English and stuff, that you get a lot of those actors doing English accents now. But that was one of the things that I remember. I want to also give a shout out to Elijah Dushku. Got a big crush on her. I loved her as Faith. Good, strong character. Some really good scary story arcs with her as well. And I also loved Anya. I love the relationship with her and Xander. When it's some of the funniest moments, and the whole bunny costume here, I think I should throw that one out as one of my favorite episodes too. Just absolutely hilarious. But also too, I love big fan of Oz, and I love the fact that he was a werewolf. I love how he was crushing on Willow from a distance, and I love the moments that they had together, and I'm a big fan of him as well, Seth Green. So those are some of my favorites. Kyle.
One of the greatest Oz moments is when he just casually calls the family, "Is such and such a werewolf?" Because that character had bit him. So
give a shout out here to Nathan.
That bit, maybe not so long.
Shout out to Nathan here as Caleb, one of the good villains of Buffy too. He had a nice little story arc.
That was Joss giving his Firefly people some love after what happened to Firefly. Yes.
All right, guys, we got one more thing that's kind of near and dear to my heart that I would like to talk about. Is remembering all the bands who played on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And as we know, and I've got my concert shirt here that my wife gave to me. This is Dingo Ate My Baby live at the Bronze. Bronze was a great set piece. It gave great stories for our main cast to go hang out, have some fights, kill some vampires, but also have some great bands. And I picked 5 of my opinion, the most notable one. And of course, Amy Mann. She was a solo artist. After going on from Till Tuesday, legendary singer-songwriter Amy Mann played the Bronze in season 7, episode 8, Sleeper. Along with her band, she performed How It Goes and Pavlov's Bell from her incredible 2002 album Lost in Space. We also had Nerf Herder, who does the lead song in Buffy. They actually played up there as well. And by the way, they're from my hometown of Santa Barbara, California. I didn't know if you guys knew that. The last band to be seen at the Bronze is the very same band who composed Buffy the Vampire Slayer's theme song, Nerf Herder, played in season 7, episode 19, Empty Places. And Dawn joked that they might be one of the signs of the apocalypse. They performed Mr. Spock and Rock City News as Faith took the potential Slayers out to blow off some steam. The inventors of Nerdcore, the band formed in Santa Barbara, and worked together from 94 to 2003. They reunited in 2005, and their last album was released in 2016. Next, we have the Breeders, one of the best bands to survive the 90s and continue releasing great music in the years that followed. The Breeders appeared on Buffy the Vampire Slayer because sisters Kim and Kelly Deal are huge fans of the show. The band played the Bronze as Dawn danced with RJ in season 7, episode 6, Him, performing 2 songs off their excellent album titled TK, Little Fury, and Son of 3. The Breeders had previously released a cover of Nerf Herder's Buffy theme song and had also been playing the track on tour for months. When Kim Deal herself called to negotiate the Breeders' appearance at the Bronze, they would go on to record the theme song themselves for Radio Sunnydale. And also, we had Michelle Branch. Michelle Branch appeared in the Bronze season 6, episode 8, Tabula Rasa, playing her heartbreaking ballad, Goodbye to You. The song soundtracked several major events in Buffy the Vampire Slayer as Tara left Willow, Giles left town, and Buffy kissed Spike for the first time. And my favorite appearance from one of my favorite artists is season 4, Biff Naked in The Harsh Day of Life. As Buffy gets to know a charming student named Parker, Spike searches for a ring that, according to legend, makes the wearer lucky or invincible, and the song that they sing is Lucky. Biff Naked is kind of a punk pop princess from Canada. If you haven't really heard of her, that's because she didn't really make it huge in the States, but she is huge in Canada. I got a chance to see her at the Viper Room in the early 2000s. She was great. She's had some songs and some soundtracks as well. Kyle, do you remember Biff Naked in a couple of stuff she was in?
Yeah, Lucky was actually one of my favorite songs on the highly underrated Buffy the Vampire Slayer soundtrack CD they put out.
Yes.
Which I believe came out right around season 4. And let's be honest, the Nerf Herder opening theme to Buffy is one of the greatest television theme songs of all time.
Yes. Also, because it was being filmed in Canada, I also found out about Biff Naked because she had a song on the Crow Stairway to Heaven soundtrack, the one season series about a remake of The Crow, starring Mark Dacascos, which I highly recommend. It's very good, and she was in that as well. But guys, I want to ask the big question. So let's hit our next segment here. There's been a lot of talk is how would you reboot Buffy? Would you do a continuation, bring back some of the surviving cast members? I think they're all survived. Bring back some of the old cast members with new blood, or do a brand new cast? Who should be the showrunner? Kyle, I'm going to start with you. What would you like to see?
This is tough because Buffy is such an amazing show. I don't know if I really ever want them to touch it, but if I was going to say it, I think you have to do it as a continuation. And maybe you have a new Slayer that's the focus, and you bring in some of the characters from the show making an appearance. Maybe Xander's kind of the watcher of it or something like that. I think that's really the only way to do it. But I think because I know there was actually talk of a Buffy reboot for a while with a total recasting, and I think they had a young African American actress ready to play the Buffy character that time around, and it just kind of fell through. And I think the reason why is because it's just, even to this day, Buffy is just, I think, is one of those untouchable shows. You're going to have to wait 50 years before I think you can truly do something with Buffy, because it's just, you're going to have to wait for a generation of fans to kind of clear out, because it's one, and the problem is it's one of those shows that I think is it's beyond generations because parents show it to their kids who then are going to show it to their kids because it's that kind of show.
Yeah. Lacey, what about you? You were nodding your head. Are you on that same thing there? What would you like to see?
Yes and no. I think if they're going to reboot it, it's going to need to be a continuation. But I think that they need to go with some of those Slayers, some of the potentials, and actually like continue with the 4 or 5 that made it through the last episode. Maybe something like that. I would have loved to have seen the whole Immortal kind of storyline, but I think that's kind of past. I think that realistically, what we need to do, and I would watch this tomorrow, is to do the Ripper spinoff prequel, where Anthony Stewart Head is writing in his journal or writing, he's rereading his Watcher's diaries, and you cast him with someone who's 22, and you have him do like a little blurb at the beginning and the end of each episode, and do it like that, where you have the full kind of you get to recast the younger versions of him and Ethan Rayne and all these people that they talked about throughout the years. And then if you need to satisfy your update of vampire stuff in the current time, just watch First Kill on Netflix.
It's interesting.
I mean,
I was gonna say, I have the perfect casting for a young Giles when you say that.
Okay.
It's the guy who recently played Picard's son on the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen Picard.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Aragon?
Yes.
It's the young man, the young kid who played the boy in Aragon.
Charlie,
Kyle,
okay.
you are spot on.
Charlie,
hold on, real quick, Kyle, you are spot on there. And if you get a chance, at least like watch a clip from season 3 of Picard. This guy would be perfect for it. Kyle, did you have another comment you want to make?
No, I just wanted to bring that up because that just flashed in my head the minute we talked about that.
Erin, I want to ask you the same question here, but when I have my mind made up of what I would like to see, but Lacey, I think you've sold me here. I think this would be great. I would love to see a young Ripper series, but before I give my thoughts of what I would like to see, Erin, you were nodding your head when she was mentioning a young Ripper series. What would you like to see in Buffy going forward, if any?
So I'm going to pick a bit from everyone. Kyle is right. Don't touch it. It's too iconic. It's like the Gone with the Wind, the Wizard of Oz. You really can't. Even if you did. So if you were to do anything, it will be like a Netflix. Otherwise, it will be. So they've repeated stuff. They've done a new Charmed. They did a Pretty Little Liars on HBO that was like Pretty Little Liars being Euphoria.
Roswell.
Okay.
Roswell.
I didn't mind the Roswell, but for who watched the first Roswell? But really, I mean, no, but you did, but not as iconic as Buffy.
Oh no!
So you might have loved it, but then I enjoyed enjoyed the first 2 seasons of the new Roswell, and then someone left, and it got boring.
Same.
Buffy, oh no, when it was all really good, because it was good, and I liked it up. But Buffy in itself is too iconic. What can you do without a whole generation, like with some of the Star Wars fans when they tried to change? Because it is a generational thing. And Kyle's right. You're going to have to wait 500 years before anyone can change to do anything. Because if you bring the old cast in, it's just not going to work. And I hope it doesn't. Leave it there. But going with the spin-off, Ripper, yes, because they were going to do that. I would go with the young guy called Jack Lowden, who was in The Gold, and he was in some other things. He would make a good, and you're right, Anthony Stewart Head does the voiceover, he reads his diaries, and then it goes to them doing that, and you find out that past would be more palliative for us.
And you can even sprinkle in some of the historical characters. You can sprinkle. I mean, James Marsters can show up. You've got
Yeah, exactly.
Anya and the Halfrek and all the people from the past. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how you would do it.
What I would like to see if they do it, but now it's my second choice over a Young Ripper series. I love that idea, Lacey. There is a part of me as a fan of Buffy and all of the wonderful actors that are still with us. I would love to see them come in, maybe do a long episode or episode movie, and then kind of set the stage for another cast. Maybe just call it Slayers or whatever it is, which is what we'll get into in a minute with something else. But letting know that we're still in the Buffyverse, because I would love to see the original cast get back together, change some quippy lines, fight or whatever it is. But I would like to see this world expand a little more, see a new generation. And maybe if one of the cast members wants to hang around and be the Watcher or whatever it is, I would just love to see them in one way or another. And I don't know if that's a possibility, but I'm not ready for a clean sweep reboot of just brand new characters being the same characters that we know. I want to see our characters that are still alive, still looking okay, reconnect again.
Yeah, but
Erin.
then you're going to get Just Like That. And it's going to be horrible.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Because but it is. That's exactly what came back with that.
And just
didn't
like
work.
Yeah, and just like that I think that we would get better with bringing back the cast. And like I said, you don't stick them around. You move on with them, but you let them know that you're in the same world. You can have them come back and mix in, even bring in some people from Angel as well. But I that's why I'm saying allow them to introduce a new cast, but still in the same world, because I think it would be really cool if we had even guest stars that were in the original Buffy series reemerge as well. Because if you keep this world open, you can bring back these characters and also expand some of these guest stars that are still around and what have you. That's my thought.
Karen,
Kyle,
I want to say it because it's the elephant in the room in Buffy. Because of things that have happened with Joss Whedon, and I'm not gonna. You can go on the internet and read all about that and go. I really think that is going to be the reason why we might never get that, because even though there's all these phenomenal writers that came out from under that Buffy tree, Joss was the straw that stirred that drink, and it was for whatever you think of him, it's his magic touch at the end of the day that made Buffy what it was.
You look at all the best becoming Surprise and Innocence, Hush, directed and written by Joss Whedon. All of them.
Yeah.
All of those big ones have always been the double of him.
Okay, hold on. Is there someone now that could take the helm and
Marty Noxon and Jane Espenson
and still get that kind of magic with the character development and the script?
I would agree with you, Lacey, except because of what has happened with the Nevers, they've even been a little bit knocked down some pegs.
Yeah.
Because of that, because the Nevers failed so spectacularly after everything that happened with Joss. Unfairly, I thought it was a great show.
That was a domino effect. I think that, if you look at Jane Espenson and Marty Noxon, and they're just in their creation and their producer credits over the last few years, just take the Nevers out of it, and you've got they've done a ton of stuff, and they've done guest writing on a ton of different shows and stuff. And I think even with abilities.
I think even with the X-Files coming back, we were all excited with the X-Files coming back, and it was just not good.
There was only
I don't even know what they tried passing. They tried handballing it to the next cast.
If they're gonna
when did we see any more?
If they're going to do it with the same cast, they need to do what they do with Psych. They had 7 seasons or 8 seasons. Then they've done like 3 movies, and they do them every couple of 3 years. They get together. They have a little fun reunion. They get together. They have fun.
I would be up for that. That would be kind of fun.
A few movies and then call it. Yeah.
But I think we're all agreed. Let's get the
band back together.
Get Giles. We need to see what could have, or what happened, because I that would be, and especially with like him like coming back and like, and now, you know, doing the voiceover, and
That's
that
why I love
would
Pennyworth. Did you watch Like the whole idea of Alfred back in the day,
Pennyworth was a lot of fun,
right? I
Pennyworth
mean,
was very
that's such a cool idea. Let's do that with Giles, man.
Well, speaking of the term Slayers, Kyle, you've started listening to this. This is a brand new audio book with several of the cast members returning and doing their voices, called Slayers. And this is available on Amazon. Original cast members from the beloved TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer reunite for an all-new adventure about connections that never die, even if you bury them. A decade has passed since the epic final battle that concluded Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series. The game-changing spell that gave power to all potential Slayers persists. With new Slayers constantly emerging, things are looking grim for the bad guys. We get rebellious vampire Spike back, working undercover in Los Angeles with old pal Clem, when he meets feisty rookie Slayer Indira, who wants Spike to be her mentor. Stakes intensify as Cordelia emerges from the alternate reality where she is alone is the Slayer, and Buffy Summers doesn't exist. Cordelia enlists Spike's help with a classic big bad terrorizing the world. His ex Drusilla, Giles, Anya, Jonathan, Danny Strong, and Tara Amber Benson also return. But through the years and the vastness of the multiverse, not everyone who is what they used to be. Kyle, what are your thoughts so far? You haven't finished it yet, right?
Okay, no, I just started this recently. I'm not that far into it, but I've actually been following this project since I heard about it a couple months ago. This is a kind of this is very interesting because it ties a little bit into our conversation we just had. Amber Benson wrote this. Amber Benson, of course, played Tara.
Yep.
She reached out, and she started this after the stuff.
By the way, just so you know, it's written and directed by Amber Benson and Chris Golden.
Yeah. This project, she started working on this project after some of the stuff about Joss started becoming public and what happened on the Buffy set. And she did this as kind of a healing process for herself. And it turned into this thing where she decided to do this and reached out to several of the Buffy alum and invited to do this. Some of them declined. Some of them said, I'm not ready to go there yet. But in an interview that I've seen with a lot of the people in this, they all talk about how that especially the ones that, you know, like James Marsden, especially Charisma Carpenter, this was kind of a healing process for them to be able to re-accept Buffy as part of their life without the Joss drama in it. Plus, and Marshall even says one of his favorite things was getting reunited with Juliet Landau, and it was just like no time had passed. They just clicked instantly again. I'm finding this very interesting. Them using the alternate Earth thing is specifically, I in ways I like it, in ways I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the cheap out to get some of these characters back, but it's where we're kind of hoping maybe they found a creative way to bring like a Cordelia back or something like that, other than just going the alternate universe. But so far, it's very well done. Good music in it. James Marsters is your central character. Spike is your central character, and it's really good. What's really interesting about this, and this is kind of something they've been doing with Audible books and originals here recently, it's actually recorded in Dolby Atmos. So you really get a lot of sound effects and interesting and a real clear sound on this. And it's about an 8-hour Audible play. I'm probably about 2 hours into it, and I've enjoyed it so far. It's got a little bit of that Buffy feeling to it. Sometimes it's a little weird because James Marsters, as he's gotten older, his voice has changed a little bit, so it's not quite. Spike sounds a little different, but it's got that fun Buffy energy to it, and I just think it's great that it's being also used for a lot of these actors who are coming to do this as a healing process. And Amazon has expressed interest in doing more stuff with this group and expanding, working in the Buffy universe. So I would hope maybe that would be our way to get them back together. Get Allison in there, get Nicholas in there, maybe even get Sarah Michelle in there to do that.
And Christopher Golden has written, I mean, he's probably written 50 Buffy books. I mean, he was kind of the unofficial novelist with Nancy Holder for a long time. This is one called the Gatekeeper Trilogy.
Oh wow!
It actually
hold that up there. Let me get a good shot of that there. There you go. Nice.
Close enough?
Yeah, that's good.
It's nice. It originally came out in a series of 3 books, and then they released it in hardback as the trilogy together. But he's written probably, between him and Nancy Holder, I think there's probably 85 or 100 books, Buffy the Vampire Slayer books, and some of them are like serialized from different episodes, and some of them are, like there's one where Angel meets Pike, her boyfriend from the original movie. Like there's all this kind of stuff. And then they actually went on to do an Angel series. They've written probably 30 of those. So when it comes down to it, the 2 people that wrote this series probably have the combined knowledge that's equal to Whedon himself.
Gotcha.
No.
All right, guys, we need to wrap this up here. And I want to ask one more big question. And the big question here on Time Warp Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series is your final comments. This will give you a chance if you want to touch on any best quotes, story arcs, your favorite guest stars, villains. Let's wrap it up here. But there's so much to cover. We definitely have to cover the big things. This has been so awesome. We've had a lot of great input on this. And I'm going to start with my lovely wife. Erin, what are your final comments on Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series?
Buffy's always going to be my blankie. I love Buffy. It was a good time of mine.
Explain that term. I know what it means, but explain that
blankie. Term. Well, when you're young and you've got your stuffed teddy or your blankie, and it's your comfort. It's your comfort. And it was definitely like there when we were going through the pandemic, and in Australia and Victoria, we were locked in a 5K radius for 3 months. If you want to go back and put on a good pair of your favorite jeans and put on your own favorite song, and you want to sit there and just watch something that goes back even to, and I know that it is 26 years old. I feel Buffy finished last year. That's how I feel. No, I really do. Yeah. And even though we don't have cell phones, and there were computers, but it was really the start of the internet, because you had the one person
look up something on the net.
On the net. And then you had a beeper. And I think near the end of it, she had a phone. I don't feel it's dated. I don't know why. I just feel that it's the time where I can sit back. There was the late 90s. I was living in London, and it was just a time of probably one of my favorites of my life. And so that's locked into some music that I like and people I knew. That is, and I'm not saying it's not perfect. Sex and the City, I can do every single season. I can watch all the way through. It's one block. Every single season is fine. Buffy isn't. And I have to say, I probably watch 1 to 5, and I see that as Buffy, and I think that's what Josh wanted. And you feel that Josh leaves at 6 and he's off doing Firefly. And I don't think if Josh was around, 6 would have been as what it was. I think he just had a couple of fingers in it, but he wasn't really in there. So even with that, and there were a couple of episodes, as you said, Normal Again, and I hate the singing episode, but that's just me. But there are a couple of episodes that are good, but in a whole, not good. 7 is, as you said, bring everyone back for the last hurrah. But those first 1 to 5, I could literally put on every day and watch it. Like Friends, Sex and the City, Buffy is my little, I want to sit down with my best friends at a good time. I know every word, I know every nuance, and it's just a happy place, even though not all the happiest things happen. It's a universe that I find comforting. Funny enough, if you ever want to look up where Buffy actually is meant to be, it's right in your land, Kevin, Santa Barbara. Because that's where he says it's a couple of hours out of LA. And when he said it was like just before you get into Santa Barbara, don't think it's Montecito, but it's somewhere in there. That is where actual Sunnydale is meant to be.
It's near the beach somewhere, which is interesting.
Yeah. No, see, it's Santa Barbara.
Kyle, you put your finger up. You wanted to jump in on this?
Well, I just wanted to say I agree with Erin on the aspect of this show does never feel dated. And I think it's because it really doesn't rely on technology. Yes, they do some computer things and stuff like that, but it's about the ancient scrolls. It's about this. It feels like, except for a couple of times, you could stick Buffy right into any time frame, but yet it also capsulizes so many things about that time period in our lives too. So it's very interesting in that way. But yeah, the Buffy's a show that never feels dated to me either, and I think that's just because of the fact it doesn't rely on the technology. It relies on the storytelling and on the characters, and they don't make the technology a huge part. And I think that's one of the magic pieces of Buffy.
Did you have any other final thoughts on Buffy you want to share?
So if you would have told me 20 years ago that when you're listing some of the greatest television of all time, that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was going to be on the list of greatest TV shows of all time, I would have been like, what are you talking about, Louis? But it is one of the smartest, one of the most timeless, one of the most fun TV series of all time. But yet it packs such an emotional punch. It is unbalanced. It's not a perfect series. There's not good. There's seasons that aren't good. There's seasons that are absolutely phenomenal. But that's what makes it good television, because it's not always perfect, and it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be what it is, and it knew what it was, and it wasn't afraid of what it was. It embraced it and made it something even much more special than it really probably should have ever been. And that goes to not only Josh Whedon and the writers teams, that goes to the actors, that goes to everybody involved in this, because especially through the first 5 seasons, you see the love that goes into this show, and everybody loves it, and they know they're onto something special. The last 2 seasons will always feel a little disconjointed to me as well, Erin, and that's also when Buffy switched for networks, when it went from the WB to the UPN, and I think that caused, being on a new network, probably the network kind of had some directions they wanted to go and how the show wanted to feel too. And I think that's noticeable. And I think it's noticeable in how the show looks, how the show comes off, how the show is portrayed in those final 2 seasons as well. And I don't, like you said, I think Josh was really not that involved in especially season 6, but I think as well as in season 7, because I think he felt he had finished telling his story when he killed Buffy in season 5. But it's still one acting, performances, memorable characters across the board. Buffy is timeless. It shouldn't be touched, and it's something that I think needs to be passed down from generation to generation so they can see what good storytelling can do.
Shout out to David Jedi Jones says Buffy is eternal. Yes, we know about the Josh drama, but clearly Buffy has transcended that and will live another 26 plus years even more. Well said. Lacey, give us your final thoughts on Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series.
I think the main reason that it does not feel dated is because all of the slang is Buffy speak. And when you're not using regular language, you take it out of the time period. Now there's a little bit of tech catch up, but other than that, everything that's said that's like any sort of slang or any sort of that, it's all Buffy speak, so it's all made up. So he made his own dialogue, his own dictionary of slang, and I think that's part of why it doesn't feel dated. As far as favorite lines, I think for the whole series, I think my favorite line is "out for a walk, bitch."
That's funny. Well said.
If you know, you know. And then when you talk about couples, everybody's talked about romantic couples. I think the relationship that and I'm not a big fan of Dawn, okay? Just the idea of her. I love Michelle Trachtenberg. She's adorable. But Spike and his relationship with Dawn and protecting her and calling her a little bit and all that was one of the key points in his arc that I really enjoyed, was when he finally realized that, he could just be a good guy. So
but the same with the mayor. I mean, he was evil. I mean, shout out to being the best big bad ever.
Yeah.
But his relationship with Faith
and
was loving.
Words, yeah.
And the scene when and again another all the episodes, graduation 1 and 2, all lead up, was in the hospital when he has the fight with Angel, And he really is so angry. And he calls that, that evil little whore of of Buffy that killed my beautiful Faith or put her into a coma. Again, that just showed just not this guy is evil, but he was also a germaphobe and terribly nice. But yeah, and that's how you just have these layers that you will not get again in any other show. You will either be black or white and nothing in the middle.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's how well that's how well the show was fleshed out. Even a character that's only going to be on for 5 to 7 episodes gets a full backstory. You know exactly where they're coming from. You get a real feeling of a fleshed out character, and they're only on it for 4 episodes or 7 episodes out of
Kyle?
150.
Kyle?
The mayor ate demonic spiders. That's just that's the personification of evil.
You know, what's interesting, it doesn't feel
dated. Full of fiber.
Buffy doesn't feel dated, and I think there's a reason why. I think I've kind of figured it out. So, when I look back and I look at the fashions for me in the 90s, I don't cringe at most of them. Maybe some of the baggy jeans, maybe because I had some. But most of all, a lot of the stuff, and what's interesting too, as people of a certain age like us, we remember the 90s more than the 80s, especially the day-to-day stuff, maybe a lot of the programming. Definitely we remember more of what we were wearing because we were coming into a certain age where that was important to us. The music was important to us. What was going on in social commentary around the world, music, TV shows, whatever it was, we were remembering this type of stuff. And it's a show like Buffy and written really, really well that I think makes us feel like it's not dated, but it does take us back a little bit and remember that time. Remember, I used to have a jacket like that, or used to have a dress like that, or whatever it is. And as I'm doing my rewatch, I'm going like, I used to wear what Xandra was wearing, little things like that, or maybe what Oz was wearing. And I remember crushing on girls wearing what Cordelia or Buffy was wearing, and because it doesn't seem like that long ago, even though it's 26 years ago as of this recording, but it's more fresh in our minds because it's that time for us was very impressionable. And as I was talking with Erin too, by the time that she was in London and watching Buffy and going through this magical time of her life, which was one of her favorite times of her life, I was doing the same. I was moving East Coast and working for this wonderful game company and traveling around and meeting new people. We remember certain things we were doing during this time. And Buffy's one of those shows that brings back that type of memories and such. So such a great show, guys. Thank you guys so much for, I know it's been a little long here, but I think that we've had a lot of fun with this.
And we could do another 3 hours, so you better go.
You are listening to and watching the Fandom Podcast Network, and if you're on YouTube, we very much appreciate it. Please share it. Please give us a like, and please subscribe. This is, of course, Time Warp, our favorite show, our Fandom Flashback show, where we look back on our favorite TV shows and years of movie, and we got a lot more coming up on that as well. But let's go ahead and let everyone know how we can get a hold of each other. Kyle, let's start with you.
Of course, you can find me, anywhere on the Fandom Podcast Network, talking about all the fun things we do around here. You can find me on our Facebook page, Fandom Podcast Network. You can find me personally on social media, on Twitter at AKW, or on Instagram and Threads at AKowFandom. And I just want to throw this out there to all you listeners. It is Halloween time. This is, of course, our special Halloween type episode. And just remember, the vampires, the demons, the other creatures of the night, they really don't like Halloween. They think it's just foolish, and they just leave us alone that night. So that is the night you are safe. You should not feel in peril on Halloween.
Shout out to David sending there saying, well done, well done, Slayers. Thank you so much for watching, David. We really appreciate your input too. Erin, where can we find you on the socials?
I'm on Instagram under Erin Gill 666. There you go.
Awesome. And Lacey, where can we find you?
Really, mostly I'm on the Fandom Podcast Network on the Time Warp and occasional Couch Potato Theater. But if you're looking to follow someone on the gram, the Instagram, I'm the Lacee Pants. I'm very boring though. I warn you, I'm not very interesting. I don't post very. I repost. I don't.
I really think it's time, Lacey, you change your Instagram handle to the Queen of Movie Foo.
Yes, there you go. I agree with that.
I kind of feel like that's a little bit aggressive. I feel like people would challenge me, and I'm not looking to defend the title.
Well, and Lacey, of course, is one of our hosts of Time Warp on the Fandom Podcast Network, and right now we are going back to 1983, which is, as of this recording, in 2023, all 40 years ago, and we've been doing this in segments. And as Erin mentioned earlier, we had so much fun listening to all of our older episodes while we were on a trip through northern UK and Scotland. It was awesome talking about movies and going back and realizing all the silly stuff that I said. It was awesome.
Can I preview something that's coming to the Fandom Podcast Network?
Please.
So December is normally the time of green and red and Santa Claus and green Christmas trees. But I'm working on a little special project for the beginning of December on the Fandom Podcast Network. It will involve green, but it's going to involve something really big and really green because Godzilla is taking forefront at the beginning of December on the Fandom Podcast Network with the new Monarch show that is coming out on Apple Plus on the 17th, and the release of the first Japanese Godzilla film since Shin Godzilla, hitting the theaters and on IMAX for the first time, Godzilla -1. And I've got some fun things planned with that. And we might even have a very special Couch Potato Theater celebrating the 10-year anniversary of a movie that very much ties into the Godzilla kaiju myth. So,
gotcha. All right, Lacey, do you have something?
I just have one question, and that's when are we going to come back and talk about Angel?
That is something we gotta see if there's an anniversary coming up on that. Yeah. Yeah, I got a puppet here that probably has some stuff to say about that.
I still haven't seen Puppet Kevin on this episode.
Again, my name is Kevin. You can find me on X and Instagram and Threads at Spartan_Phoenix. And please leave us a rated review if you're allowed to leave reviews through your podcast provider. And of course, you can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com, Facebook as well, Fandom Podcast Network. And Fandom Podcast Network is also on Instagram and X. Please check that out and support us. And again, I would like to thank my wonderful cast. My lovely wife, Erin, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you. Love you.
Love you too. Love you all.
And Kyle, I love you too, but in a different way. Thank you for coming on.
Well, I feel honored and privileged, but the truth of the matter is I miss your wife too. So.
And Lacey, I love you too, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for in a timely manner, getting through all of Buffy so you can speak on it so eloquently. Thank you.
It was not tough. I mean, I have all the trading cards and the books and everything. Like it was not a rough decision.
Well, thank you again, and please stay tuned for our other Time Warp 1983. We're rounding out October and November, and we'll be doing December as well and talking about the award seasons for 1993. This has been Time Warp on the Fandom Podcast Network, celebrating Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for my Scooby crew here. And until next time, we will see you back in Time Warp.